Another really quick refashion video. I thought you might be interested to see how I solved the patch pocket issue of my 1743 skirt. I absolutely love this skirt. I have made loads of them. I did it when I was a little bit bigger. I have, I think, about 5 or 6 now that are about 2 inches too big for me. I really wanted to try and find some more red denim fabric, which you can see back here, because I absolutely love how this one turned out, but I haven't been successful in finding a replacement for this fabric, and I didn't have quite enough to remake the skirt. So I decided to play around with refashioning this one to see if I could make it work, and I'm so pleased that I did because I love how this has turned out. I have a lot of these skirts and none of them fit. They are all a good couple of inches too big. So usually what I would do is just take in the side seams, but because of the amount that I want to take in and the way that the pockets are done, I would lose quite a lot of the pocket opening if I did it that way. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to take the waistband off, I'm going to take the pockets off, rather than sew the edge of the pocket into the side seam, and it's currently sewn into bias binding as well, so I'll have to take that out. But rather than do that, I'm actually going to finish this edge of the pocket by turning it through, because there's an opening up here, so I'll turn it through there and then sew the side seams up to the size that I want them to be, then put the pockets on, and again catch the top of the pocket in the waistband. I think by doing it this way I will maintain the shape and size of the pockets, which is something I want to do. I will be able to keep the amount that I'm taking in, I'll be able to keep that in the side seams so that I can let it out later if I need to, and I should be able to use exactly the same waistband again. One of the things I do need to do is move it so that the tab goes underneath. But the tab, I've got like a dress hook on there, or a skirt hook on there. I want to move it so that it finishes like that, and if I use the same waistband then the tab will just be longer, which means if I do put weight on in the future I'll be able to let the side seams out, move the pockets over and sew the waistband on and still have it fit. All of that means I need to unpick, so let's get that done first and then I can start altering things. We all know how I feel about alterations. They are one of my least favourite sewing tasks, but I love this skirt so much. And like I said earlier, I couldn't find any red denim that was similar, if not equal to the red denim that I currently have. Unpicking everything was fairly easy. I knew exactly what I needed to get to, so I unpicked the majority of the waistband, but did leave a little bit sewn on because I only needed to get to the side seams. Once the waistband had been freed, I could then open up the side seams down to the bottom of the patch pockets, take those out of the bias binding that they had been caught into to finish the raw edge, and then unpick the actual patch pocket itself from the skirt front. It's in pieces. I am going to work on these in a bit. The first thing that I'm going to do is reattach the bias binding to the side of the skirt. I had to take that off so I could get the pockets out. So yeah, I'm just going to sew that back down, and then I can sew the side seams up at the new reduced width, which means that I will then need to work on the pockets. So let's get that done. Bias binding is definitely one of my favourite ways to finish a raw edge on the inside of a garment, especially one like this that is unlined and would be too thick for French seams, especially because of the pocket edge that had previously been put into that seam allowance or that binding. So finishing off the bias binding, I did it all in one go, and I did miss a few parts, so I had to unpick and start again. This is why you sew it in 2 passes. I wanted to take 2 inches off of the total circumference of the waist, so I measured 1/2 inch over from the previous stitching line, and then I measured 5 inches down from the top of the skirt waistband or the top of the skirt waistline to the side seam to taper that in so that it finished off nicely. So I've sewn up the side seams, and now I need to finish this raw edge of this pocket so it can be stitched on like a patch pocket all the way around. So I'm going to turn it through. I'm just going to unpick a little bit of this top stitching. I think that's my dinner, so I'm going to go and have dinner and then I'm going to come and do this.
1 hour later.
Dinner was delicious. Okay, so I've unpicked a little bit of the top stitching there, so I'm going to turn this through so that I can now close up this edge, and I'm going to do it at 3/8 of an inch. So I'm literally going to sew from the bottom there to the top there to close that up, and then I'm going to turn it through the little top opening here that gets sewn into the waistband, and that way I can then position the pocket on the front of the skirt wherever I want it without having to worry about the opening being made too small by taking in the side seams. I think that's a good kind of future-proofing method for this, so let's get that done. Pocket edge is now finished. I'm going to go and press it, and then I'm going to try and place these on the skirt with this bit in the waistband so it still gets caught in the waistband when I sew that down, and so that they look good. Fingers crossed I can make this work. Otherwise, no pockets on this skirt. It'll be fine. So I'm going to go press this and the other one. Just need to turn it through with my purple fang. Love this thing. Then pressing, then stitching. I have laid the pocket out on the skirt, and I have kind of tried to follow along with the same pattern or the same placement for the bottom, because that's not going to have changed, and it still gives the pocket the little kind of like poof that it has. But I need to sew the edge down here, making sure that I'm only stitching onto the outside part of the skirt, not the seam allowance. I'm going to make sure the seam allowance is out of the way under there, and I'm going to edge stitch all the way around to put that into place. Then I can put the waistband back on. So let's get that done.
So as you can see in the previous clip, I have pinned the patch pocket to the skirt front, and as I mentioned, I had followed the previous pocket placement. It had just moved over about an inch, which makes sense given how much I'm taking the skirt in by. I was very careful when I was top stitching the pocket down to make sure that I was very, very close to the edge, like less than 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I also made sure that I didn't catch any of the seam allowance when I was sewing it into or next to the side seam. I went all the way around and backstitched at the beginning and the end to secure the pocket into place, especially at the side seam, because that is an area that will get the most stress. So you do want to make sure that you're anchoring that point well.
I have pockets. I have tried it on to make sure that it fits, so the next thing that I'm going to do is sew back down the waistband, then put the hook and eye on, and I will be done. Yay!
Sewing the waistband on was very easy. As I mentioned earlier, I only unpicked it until the point that I actually needed to, so some of it was still attached. So I just sewed it back at 5/8 of an inch. Once that was on, I pressed the seam allowance up into the waistband and then pinned the lining to the outer from the outside so that I could top stitch from the outside to finish off the edge of the waistband neatly with visible top stitching, but I really like that on denim skirts. Once that was done, I could then sew the dress hook and bar back on, and the skirt was finished. Time for the reveal.
I think this is a really clever way for me to kind of tweak these skirts so that they are going to be size adjustable very easily for me in the future. I've left the waistband as long as it previously was. The seam allowance is intact in the side seams, and it's just the pockets that are completely patch pockets now rather than integral to the side seams. That means that I can let them out or take them in as needed as my weight fluctuates, which it does quite frequently and quite wildly depending on how many chocolate buttons I eat. I'm over the moon with this fix, and I am 100% going to go back with my other skirts that I have the same style of in the different prints or fabrics and make the same tweaks so I can wear them all now at my current weight, and then also let them out if I need to in the future.